Hello and welcome to the Rainbow Report Family Forum on marriage and relationships. My name is Doug Pollard and I've stolen the Saturday Magazine slot for today for the first of three special forums. Next month we'll look at parenting, same-sex parenting, and in June we'll tackle surrogacy and adoption. And if you want to take part in any of those future forums, get in touch with me at rainbowreport.com or via my Facebook page. For the next 2 hours, we have a studio full of experts, activists and interested parties for a guided discussion on all aspects of relationship recognition. Of course, marriage is on the agenda, but we'll look at overseas unions and partnerships, as well as registers and unions available here in Oz. We'll kick off with an overview from distinguished former Chief Justice of the Family Court, the Honourable Alistair Nicholson. Then we have advocates Jackie Tomlins from Australian Marriage Equality, and Ali Hogg from Equal Love. Carl Cato was to have joined us today, but unfortunately he's unwell, so we wish him get well soon, Carl. Preferably in time for the next forum I'm doing on Monday with Ali. We'll talk to former ex-gay poster boy and psychologist Paul Martin, immigration specialist Jason Sheshuti, Rodney Crew, who knows all about current unions and registers, especially the Tasmanian model. Reverend Stuart Soley of St Arms Fitzroy is here as a supportive ordained clergyman, while Hobson's Bay Mayor Tony Gripper will help us understand the special situations intersex and transgender people face in relation to marriage and partnership recognition. We have Clem Newton-Brown, the Liberal MP for Crown, Sue Bertram, who used to work for Stonewall in the UK and got civilly unioned there with her partner Anne. Welcome to the show. We've also got Greg Adkins from the Anti-Violence Project, and you'll no doubt meet many more during the show. But I want to say what I said before we went to air to all of you here in the studio. Please, whenever you want to ask a question, make a comment, challenge, an assertion, stick your hand up and we'll send a microphone to you. It might help the listeners at home if you say who you are before you start speaking. The idea of today is to get an exchange of ideas going amongst us all. And that goes for you at home or wherever you're listening. To ask a question, challenge a statement, or just pitch your 2 cents worth into the discussion, SMS us on 0427 569 949. That's 0427 JOY 949. Or email onair@joy.org.au. Or call us on 1300 JOY 949 to leave a message. We can't put your calls to air, but you can leave a message with reception. Or of course you can contact us via our iPhone app. Now, as I said, I'm going to be your host for the next 2 hours, but I'm not doing it entirely alone. Co-hosting with me this morning is Christina Antoniades, a lawyer with a great deal of experience in the law around same-sex relationships. Christina.
Thank you, Doug. What a great show we have lined up for today, and a great deal of faces in the audience who are well known within the area of gay marriage and essentially GLBTI issues generally. We will begin today's session with a historical analysis of relationship recognition before moving into the very important topic of the government's refusal to allow gay marriage and the social and psychological impact on the GLBTI community. From there, we will discuss the alternatives to marriage and the impact on foreign same-sex marriages and spouses, including, importantly, migration issues. We will address the impact of the current law on intersex and transgender persons, and finally tackle the religious aspects of gay marriage. Really, do they want to marry us?
Now, what do you hope to get out of today, Christina? What are you hoping to hear? Who are you hoping to hear from, and what are you hoping to hear?
I'm actually probably given my background, excited to hear from Alistair Nicholson, the Honourable Alistair Nicholson, in relation to, I guess, the history and how far we've come in relation to that.
Now tell people who you are and why you're interested in this, because this is like a passion with you, isn't it?
It is. I'd say unfortunately for my boss who's in the audience, I am an accredited family law specialist and a lesbian, and it's very strong and close to my heart, all of these issues, because not only do I deal with them on a daily basis with my work, but they affect me personally as well.
Yeah, and I believe you're thinking of starting a family too, so...
Possibly, yes. I think that my very unwell partner is actually listening, so hi Merrin. We are. So all of these issues are obviously very important, and you know, they face us on a daily basis, and it's just, I'm appalled at how we're not at that point yet where we can allow gay marriage to happen or equal love. I don't understand it.
And the other thing is, we're going to talk about today is all the different kinds of relationship recognition there are. There's a great deal of movement out there on the opposite side to us, as you might say, who say things like, well, you know, you're functionally equal already. You can have marriage, so you call it marriage. All those other things. We're going to look at all the issues around why that isn't good enough.
Exactly.
Why isn't it good enough for you?
It isn't good enough for me because I don't see why we should be differentiated from heterosexual couples. I just don't know that there is no difference. I think it's a basic human right to be able to marry, and to be denied that, I'm just personally and I guess professionally offended about that.
I like being professionally offended.
I like doing that. I like it when I send it to other lawyers. It really makes me feel powerful.
What do you think the chances are?
I don't think it'll get in this time round. I think we had this chat the other day actually, and we could possibly get civil unions, but I don't think gay marriage will come in at this point.
Well, I was speaking to Alex Greenwich about this the other day, and he said, I said, what do you think is going to happen? And he said, realistically, we'll see marriage somewhere in Australia sometime this year. It may not be under a federal law, it may be under a state-based law. And that's another of the issues we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how there is an opening, if you like, where state-based law is concerned, that they may be able to legislate for a state-based marriage.
That's right. And you know what?
And that would be more work for lawyers.
It would be. But I won't be surprised if Tasmania is the first to take on that.
Well, I think we're going to be asking Rodney Cream that one later on. Anyway, this is Doug Pollard with Christina Antoniadi, bringing you the Rainbow Report Family Forum on marriage and relationships. To ask a question, challenge a statement, or just pitch your 2 cents worth into the discussion, you know what to do. SMSs 0427 569 949, email onair@joy.org.au, or call us on 1300 569 949 and leave a message with reception. Or of course, you can use your iPhone app.
Rainbow Report Family Forum on marriages and relationships. To ask a question, challenge a statement, or just pitch your 2 cents worth into the discussion, SMS 0427 569 949 or email onair@joy.org.au, or simply call 1300 JOY 949 at any time. Or, if you have an iPhone, use your iPhone app. I'm Christina Antoniadis. Our next segment will be focusing on the history of relationship recognition. I'm very pleased to have the Honourable Alistair Nicholson in the studio with us. Alistair Nicholson was an Australian judge for 22 years, during which time he served as a Justice of the Supreme Court of Victoria, a Justice of the Federal Court of Australia, and for 16 years as Chief Justice of the Family Court of Australia. Since 2003, he has been an Honorary Professional Fellow of the University of Melbourne, currently attached to the Faculty of Law. During Alistair's tenure at the Family Court, he presided over a number of cases directly affecting the GLBTI community, including his role as a presiding judge on gender dysphoria cases. Alistair was also the presiding Chief Justice of the Family Court when former Prime Minister John Howard made the infamous decision to amend the Marriage Act to define marriage specifically as the union between one man and one woman. Alistair, we're very honoured to have you as a part of our guest panel today. Thank you. There has been extensive history around the amendments to the Marriage Act and how these amendments have directly affected the GLBTI community. Some say that the amendments made by John Howard to the Marriage Act were in direct response to gay couples marrying overseas and then seeking to validate their marriage in Australia. Could you take us through some of the history surrounding these amendments, and in your view, what would have happened if John Howard hadn't changed the Marriage Act when he did?
Yes, well, I think that certainly the concept of people being able to legally marry overseas caused, I think, was the trigger for the 2004 amendments. I think that the government saw that as a leading over an open gap that many people would walk through, which meant conflict with their particular policies. So I think that was no doubt the trigger. But I think it was another factor too. I think it seemed to be a vote winner. I think that John Howard, his government, were more than capable of picking up and appealing to prejudices in the community, but certainly the Northern Territory Intervention was a classic example, as was this, of the two of the worst pieces of legislation fact, it was unnecessary if they were worried about. It was unnecessary if they were worried about people getting married in Australia, because on any view of the Marriage Act, I don't think you could successfully argue at the time that it would have contemplated
The marriage between gays.
years. It's interesting also, going back just a little bit further historically,
Yes.
that in 1961, the then Country Party tried to amend the Act in the way that Howard eventually did.
And they weren't successful.
Menzies refused to accept the amendment, saying it was a matter for the courts to determine what marriage was and not for the Parliament.
Oh, and that would come back to you, obviously, because you were still presiding, weren't you, in 2003, 2004?
Not in 1961.
No, I'd be worried if you were. So we had an influx of gay couples going over to, say, Canada to get married. We actually had someone in the audience that did do that. And then they came back to Australia and made application to the family court, is that correct, to have their marriage made valid in Australia?
Well, they didn't actually go, they didn't ever get to court.
They didn't.
Because of the legislation. There were other instances. I remember being asked by Qantas, my Qantas staff member, Qantas were refusing to recognise gay marriage because of the Australian legislation. And to their credit, actually, my advice was that Qantas was not bound by the Australian legislation, and the company should recognise the laws of other countries, which it did.
Yeah.
And did recognise the marriage. I think it still does do that. But, so there was some interesting bits and pieces around that. The distinction was quite acceptable. We're really talking about a policy that goes back to 1866 all times. And the definition adopted by the Howard government in 2004 was an 1866 definition of marriage.
We went backwards, didn't we?
Well, when you think of all the social changes that have taken place since 1866, and here we are going back and legislating at that period, it was just crazy. But it's also, I agree with you that it's professionally acceptable.
Thank you, Alistair. I feel validated now.
It really is, because it always struck me as a grave injustice and a piece of discrimination that just shouldn't be on in our system. And I could never understand why churches got into the area, because historically it was a marriage in Australia. The Marriage Act was a secular institution. The churches always had their ceremonies, but the fact is that the law didn't recognise the churches as part of the system. And I don't see any reason why it should now. Effectively, that's what it's doing.
I just want to bring in something else here, which we're going to touch on, I think, in a bit more detail later on. But there is a school of thought that says that now that the Howard government has made that amendment to the Marriage Act and made the federal law specific to one man and one woman, that opens a gateway for the states to legislate state-based marriage and it vacates the field, as it were, to them. What's your opinion on that?
I think it's a pretty doubtful argument. I think it could be wrong. There's a second argument that's perhaps runs with it, and that is that what does marriage mean in the Constitution? Because if it means what it did in 1901, it probably meant what the Howard government says it means.
Yeah.
But if it means something different, then the Constitution would encompass gay marriage. Now, if that's the case, that would be an area of commonwealth power, and the states couldn't legislate. So it's a very circular sort of situation. My own view is that it probably should be read in 2012 and not in 1901. But I think the High Court would read it that way, which means I don't think that the state legislation will get up. But that's very much a curse-up.
Certainly be an interesting channel to follow.
It would be very interesting. I might have to get some advice on that, Alistair. In relation to the government's position, okay, we don't have gay marriage in Australia, but what about the position that they adopted, I guess it's now changed, but in relation to not issuing certificates of non-impediment to marriage? I mean, we had so many people wanting to go overseas and get married, but the government's saying, we don't want you to marry here, and you know what? We're not going to let you marry overseas either.
Just a vicious policy and really quite unacceptable. But it follows the same discriminatory policy that that goes. And indeed, this government still almost watered that down, but at least we shouldn't forget that the Labor opposition voted with the government on the 2004 legislation too.
I know, we're in a bit of strife here, aren't we?
Yes.
I guess moving forward, if we do have state-based legislation, whether we have some states that allow marriage and some that don't, as a lawyer, I see it, and you would see it as well, there's so many other areas of law where in one state, so just say Tasmania, just say they allowed gay marriage, come to Victoria, not recognised. I mean, aren't we really just having the same position that we would if we went overseas and got married, but we had a cheaper airfare to go to Tasmania?
Yes, that's true. And of course, there's another provision of the Constitution that says you've got to provide full faith and credit to the laws of other states. So
exactly.
That would have an interesting effect.
Yeah, look, there's going to be interesting times ahead.
Well, the Americans got around that one, of course, by doing the so-called defence of marriage. It's the silliest name ever. I don't know what marriage is defending.
Sounds quite hostile, doesn't it?
Well, it sounds like it's under attack, and I don't think it's a question of attacking. And B, if anything's attacking marriage, it's divorce. It's not people wanting to get married, it's people wanting to get divorced that trashes the institution,
Exactly.
And quickie marriages like Britney Spears or whoever else. I mean, that's a ludicrous argument.
Exactly. Look, it'll be quite interesting. I am worried that it will be state-based, which will obviously have the clear implications that Alice has just outlined. But I mean, do you see, at the moment, gay people have exactly the same rights in relation to families and property settlements and all of that. And there is the argument that, well, why marriage? I mean, do you see it that we've come to a point now where we have exactly the same equal recognition of gay marriage is just another way of formalising that?
No, I don't. No, I think it's institutional discrimination. Still has that will continue while we
Yeah.
That's actually what worries me about civil union legislation.
I think that's what worries a lot of us about civil union. I can see lots of nodding heads here. Ali, can you take a mic over to Ali Hopper from Equal Love, because I can see that she would like to have a word on this one.
That hurt.
Hold it further away.
Yeah, is that better? Yep.
Okay. Civil unions as against marriage. That would just be continuing discrimination. What would you do if the government went down that road?
Well, I think it would still be important for us to come out as angry as we are, as we've seen the current Marriage Act discriminate. I think civil unions still says that there's one section of society that should have a civil union but can't participate in registering their relationship the way that our heterosexual brothers and sisters can. So I think that it's important for us to, I think that we can see it as a partial win, but I don't think that we should see it as that we're now equal if civil unions is in place.
Because, as I see it, it will only make the political situation worse, not better, because it's being put forward as a sensible compromise. We've got Adair Friend-Warrenich up in Parliament saying, well, you just drop the word marriage and I can get everything you want for you. And he thinks that if he does that, it will all go away. I'm pretty sure you won't go away, will you, Ali?
No, I certainly won't go away. And I think that we've seen in some of the sad situations in some places, like in New Zealand, they have civil unions there. So I've got a weird microphone. They have civil unions in New Zealand, and then they did have a strong campaign for marriage equality, but they it basically killed the campaign. They don't have equal rights in New Zealand, and we still see that they've got discriminatory laws, and we still see that we haven't seen reduced rates of discrimination in New Zealand, which I think that is a big part of the Marriage Act, that the government legitimises discrimination in society as not just that it's about gay and lesbian, bi and trans people not being able to marry, but also that it sends a broader message that discrimination is okay.
Okay, can you pass the microphone over to Jackie Tomlins there from Australian Marriage Equality? Thank you for coming and welcome. How do you feel about that situation? Supposing that the Liberal Party said they would do a deal with the Labour Party and bring up civil unions, what would Australian Marriage Equality do?
Well, I think we'd be in exactly the same position with Ali, in that is not going to stop us. And we will be continuing exactly the same way as we are now. I think the whole separate but equal process has been discredited, it's been argued and done, especially in the States, and there's no way that that is something that we think is going to work. So I think, as Ali said, for us, we will be continuing with the lobbying, and what we're saying to people is, you give us civil unions and we will not go away. So I think it's the same kind of thing, is that this argument will continue and the campaign will continue. We do not see it as a compromise, we do not see it as a good position, we oppose it strongly.
In other words,
we will continue with that.
we're none of us going to shut up.
I think so.
Okay, well, this is Doug Pollard with Christina Antoniadis bringing you the Rainbow Report Family Forum on marriage and relationships. The whole studio full of experts and interested parties. If you want to join in the conversation, challenge a statement, pitch your 2 cents worth in SMS us 0427 569 949, email on@joy.org.au, or call us on 1300 569 949 at any time. Or you can use your iPhone app. On marriage and relationships, presented by Nichols Family Law. To join in, ask a question, challenge a statement, or just pitch your 2 cents worth, SMS us 0427 569 949, email on@joy.org.au, or call 1300 569 949 at any time, or use your iPhone app. My name is Doug Pollard. I'm the presenter today, with the assistance of Christina Antoniadis from Nichols Family Law. Now, one of the issues that's becoming pretty contentious is the extent to which the lack of the right to marry impacts on our mental health. As we've mentioned before, people say you already have functional equality, same status as de facto, you're already functionally equal, as the late brother used to say, well, they seem to have dropped that tag now. Or you can have marriage, someone should call it something else, like this one Rag suggested online, garage. It's difficult for non-GLBTI people to understand, obviously, quite what the importance of marriage is. Now, my next guest, Paul Martin, used to be the poster boy for the ex-gay movement, and he's since embraced his gayness, and now works as a psychologist in Brisbane, and he spearheaded the formation of a group of mental health professionals in support of marriage equality, and he joins us now. Good morning, Paul. Now, Paul, what has the right to marry got to do with mental health?
Well, it's an interesting thing. When we go down to Canberra and talk to MPs and the Prime Minister, Attorney Generals, and all those sorts of people that make the decisions, it just amazes me. They're always surprised because they've never actually thought about the connection between mental health and the ability to marry. So it's something that people don't know, they don't know, if you know what I mean? So when people actually really...
It's an unknown, as Donald Ross said.
Exactly, that's right. So when people actually join the dots, they suddenly get it. And for so many people that we've been in Canberra, it actually helps them get over the line. And actually I've talked to a lot of Christian leaders about this as well. And for them also, the mental health aspect of this helps them cross the line and actually become great supporters of marriage equality.
Okay, well, help some of the listeners over the line.
Okay.
Explain why it's got to be marriage and it can't be civil unions and it can't be the functional equality that they have already.
Absolutely. Well, I guess what I'll do is just, with a little bit of background, so all of us are brought up in a society which is like, so growing up in school, the worst thing we call was a fag, for example. That continues on. We experience such things as social exclusion. Many people in our communities develop core beliefs that they're defective, there's something wrong with them, they're disordered, sick, evil, sinful, etc. So this is what becomes internalized homophobia. And some of the thoughts and beliefs that come from internalized homophobia include things such as gay relationships don't work. They're not as valuable or valid as heterosexual relationships. So that's sort of the background. Now, when you have someone with those sorts of beliefs living in a society where the leaders in that society are saying to you, we don't believe that gay and lesbian people have the right to marry, what it does, it actually confirms those beliefs. Now, an example, an illustration of this is a client of mine that came in, a 17-year-old guy with his mum. I've worked with many families from Peak Lake, some of which have lost, unfortunately, their children to suicide because of same-sex attraction and homophobia and all the rest of it. But this guy died down just before he died. And I asked him why, and he said, I always thought being gay was bad. I was finally, recently, maybe about 6 months ago online, and recognized, well, maybe there is some hope. Maybe I'm not so bad. Maybe gay people can have a good life. And his dad had said, well, he talked us on the TV and kids at school and all the usual bits and pieces that influenced that. Then he said, I saw the Prime Minister of our country say that gay marriage should be just between a man and a woman. And he said, then I realised that all of those things that I always thought were true. So what's the point? If I'm not going to have a good life and able to have a good, healthy, long-term relationship, then what's the point?
So marriage still has that kind of power over young people, even if they're gay. I mean, one of the first things that I had to come to terms with when I found out I was gay was actually a sense of relief. I wouldn't have to get married.
Yeah, exactly. And what we find is that, and it's very much sophisticated with it, we find that people who are in an older age group actually
yeah, that's me.
have that type of response to marriage. If you look at all of the research, it indicates that a vast majority of young gay and lesbian people want the right to marry. The older you get, the less likely you are to think that it's of any relevance at all. In fact, a lot of people are actually against gay marriage.
Well, that's not me.
No, it's absolutely not you, Doug.
As I think you may have noticed.
Try.
I guess, I'm not that much in touch with up-and-coming young people. But, as I say, in my day, it was in a way, I suppose it was something you got over. There was a moment of regret that you weren't going to have the house, the car, a couple of kids, the wife, stroke husband, whatever, and then you kind of got on with it. But you're saying now that it's an aspiration to be married and to have a family like everybody else.
Yes, that's right. I think because so many people are coming out these days, and everybody knows someone who's gay, so it's no big deal anymore. Whereas when I was growing up in a Baptist church in a very liberal kind of sort of family, and for many years I was living in this sort of, internal conflict and torment, also given the Christian thing, that I was gay. But I didn't realise that my best friend and my dad were going through exactly the same thing at the same time, but no one said anything until many years later. But these days, young people are coming out at a much earlier age. And for them, it's a bit like, well, why shouldn't we get married? I mean, so things are very clear to them, whereas for us, we're just kind of surviving, I think.
Yeah, hi Paul, it's Christina here. Look, I'm in my 30s, I'm not in Doug's age group, but as in that age group, I would like to think that I have at least the option to marry, and then from that, I guess, flows, once I do have a family, why should my children have parents that are not legally married? Like, the effect isn't only on the gay community. What about those children having to go to school and go, my parents aren't married, because the law won't let them? I mean, have you seen much of that in your work?
What a fabulous question. I love it. Because this is the thing that a lot of Christian leaders will throw at me left, right, and centre. What about the children? And same-sex marriage equality, the children, and 25% of same-sex attracted people are raising children. Whether people, whether the church likes it or not, that's just the reality.
Yeah.
And the children overseas whose parents' relationship has been valued and validated by society to allowing them to marry, it's shown an increase in their sense of well-being and the psychological well-being. So it actually has a huge positive effect on the children that are being raised by same-sex couples.
It just seems that the government just don't get that. They don't get the impact on the gay community or the impact more broadly.
Well, obviously not. I can see Tony Briffa here, Mayor of Hodgson's Bay, sitting here at the front. You've been nodding intently throughout most of what you've been saying. Tony, has this been your experience?
Absolutely. I've actually got foster children, so I've raised 2 foster children. Guess what? They're actually from a heterosexual family. Sorry, can you give that? Microphone close to my mouth. So I've raised 2 foster children. They're from heterosexual families. They obviously when they went through school, had issues about having parents that are same sex. Obviously made that difficult, but they're well-adjusted, great kids. Actually, also surprise, surprise, they're both straight. And that's the other argument I hear all the time about
They haven't caught it.
how, that's right. If gay people have children, they're going to, be somehow gay as well.
Yeah, well, I know that's nonsense for a fact. I've got someone working on my show who is heterosexual, who was raised by two gay guys, and it is a nonsense, but it is something we hear all the bloody time, isn't it, Christine?
Absolutely. The Christian lobby are very well resourced. Their marketing is very slick. The words they use are words that are very strategically chosen to, and unfortunately it's a negative thing, because what they do is a fear-based campaign. And a lot of Christian leaders and also politicians say to us in the lobbying scene that we have a very different approach to this, and actually we're getting a lot more validity in a sense than a lot of the Christian lobby groups, because we're saying that we respect other people's views, that's fine, we're not putting anyone else down. However, what we're wanting to do is look at the research evidence, look at real people with real lives, we put that in front of people and just say, look, this is the reality, and we're not putting anyone else down, and it's not a fear-based campaign. It's a campaign which is about all the positives that will come once we're allowed to marry.
Absolutely.
Exactly right. The other thing I'd like to say about because we're talking about Christians, but not all Christians are anti-marriage equality. There are, like if I speak to the Uniting Church, for example, they're very much in support of.
I know we've got at least one in the audience here.
Okay, so it's not all Christian groups, but certainly if you look at the Catholic groups and some of those more right-wing groups, sort of they are. I just want to acknowledge that.
Yes, indeed. And I think also something I said before, and I'll say again, it's often the hierarchy are not very keen, but the people in the pews don't go down for the most part.
Oh, absolutely.
Every time you survey Catholic congregations, the numbers come about 60-40 in our favour.
Yeah.
And likewise, I think it's probably even higher in the Anglican Church. We'll talk to the Reverend Stuart Solly about that later on in the programme. Paul, are you seeing a lot of psychological problems at the moment because it's such a high-profile issue and because there's such a big push for gay marriage?
From a clinical perspective, absolutely. And so what I say to politicians is that a huge proportion of gay and lesbian people, they're living fantastic, healthy, wonderful lives, but the statistics in terms of the people who are extremely vulnerable are much higher than in heterosexual communities. So one of the problems there is that the most vulnerable people in our community are the people that are the most affected by the sorts of negative rhetoric that's coming out of the other side of this debate. So when you hear Christian leaders, politicians, other people who have a lot of influence in the community say terrible things that are not based on evidence about what it means to be same-sex attracted.
Okay,
that actually goes straight into people, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to cut it short there, Paul. Thank you very much for joining us today, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you.
This is Christina Antiatis with Doug Pollard, bringing you the Rainbow Family Forum on marriage and relationships.
Brought to you by
Nichols Family Lawyers. To ask a question, challenge a statement, or just pitch your 2 cents worth into the discussion, SMS 0427 569 949, email onair@joy.org.au, or call 1300 JOY 949 at any time. Or if you have an iPhone, use the iPhone app. Marriage and relationships, brought to you by Nichols Family Lawyers. To ask a question, challenge a statement, or just pitch your 2 cents worth into the discussion, SMS 0427 549 949, email onair@joy.org.au, or call 1300 JOY 949 at any time, or if you have an iPhone app, simply use that. I'm Christina Antoniadis. There are what you might call 2 wings of the movement for gay marriage. So we've got the Australian Marriage Equality and Equal Love. I want to ask Jackie Tomlins of Australian Marriage Equality and Ali Hogg of Equal Love to think the unthinkable. If we can't get marriage, or at least, what are the alternatives? E.g., for example, are we going to have state-based marriage, federal unions, or is it simply not going to happen? Ali, I might start with you. What are your views on that?
Well, I think obviously we can have all of these other things, but as I talked about earlier, I think that it would mean that we will need to keep fighting for full equal rights. And I think anything short of that just still sends a message that we're unequal and isn't good enough. So I think we've already seen that we have the same de facto rights as our heterosexual brothers and sisters, and it basically hasn't really changed anything other than we've got a few more rights, but it still means that we can't recognise, our relationships can't be recognised in the Australian Marriage Act. So I think that, yeah, anything short of that isn't good enough, and you're going to keep seeing equal love and Australian marriage equality continue to fight.
Well, we saw you having fun last night out on the street. I was on my way to the theatre last night and I came across a bunch of equal marriage zombies, led by an equal marriage zombie nun who turned out to be Ali.
So we take advantage of the fact that it was Friday the 13th and had a Zombies for Marriage Equality leafleting session.
And Jackie, what would you like to add to that? Obviously, you're both for the same cause. You're both for equal marriage. I guess for the viewers out there, or the listeners, I should say, why the two different organisations?
Well, I think that the two organisations are complementary, and I think we're both, as you say, working for the same thing in slightly different ways.
Yeah.
And I think what Australian Marriage Equality is doing is running a very, very broad lobbying campaign that is directed at MPs, but also supporting local campaigns, and involved in bringing other groups of people on board in that. So, for example, like Paul, working with mental health professionals, working with clergy, trying to rope in some celebrities. So it's a kind of a very broad approach at trying to change people's minds.
Do you think, can I just ask, do you think it's made a difference having Carl Katter, the infamous Bob Katter's brother, on AME?
Look, I think it's fantastic. I think, anybody, we can bring on side anybody who has a profile and is willing to actually put their name to it and support us. It's fantastic. And I think, yeah, we embrace anybody like that who will come on board and be on our side too.
Fantastic.
Now, I wanted to have a word here with Joseph Chashuti. He's a migration agent, and one of the issues that comes up time and again when we talk about marriage and getting marriage in this country is all the issues around, if we have something else, how's that seen overseas? How does that affect people who want to migrate here, who are partners of Australians and so on and so forth? Joseph, if it was marriage, there wouldn't be a problem, would there? It would be pretty straightforward.
Well, it would be pretty straightforward because, unlike domestic relationships, a marriage is a clear state. You're either married or you're not. And
you can't be a little bit married or be a little bit pregnant.
If you're not married, for example, well, you have to have a decree from the family court. However, if you're in a domestic relationship, you've got to work out, first of all, what a domestic relationship means. And there are two definitions that can be broken up in four under the Statute Law Amendment and Further Amendment Act that was introduced in 2001. But significantly, I think there has been a number of changes in migration law, and they did not start in the last decade. In fact, they go back to the 80s when the old Section 6A, the federal government or the minister had the discretion of giving someone who had an entry permit to remain in Australia on compassionate grounds, strong compassionate grounds. And I have to say that Liberal governments used to apply that legislation, and they used to give gay partners the right to remain in Australia under that provision, the old 6A.
And when I started, because you were my agent, you got me in here, so he's to blame, folks.
Must have been a long time ago.
he's to blame, folks. We had to work with the interdependence.
Yes, that came in 1991. The then federal government, it was a Labour government, they didn't really have the guts to actually refer to gay men or lesbians or even homosexuals. So we became interdependent. In 2009, there were a number of changes that took place, and they were quite significant. First of all, we all became partners, so you were either a spouse is someone who is married to a person of the opposite sex, or a de facto partner, which includes people in a de facto relationship irrespective of their gender.
But how do you prove, if you want to migrate to this country, how do you prove that you're in a de facto relationship?
Well, the legislation provides a number of guidelines. I mean, you have things like financial aspects of the relationship, social aspects of the relationship. There is the nature of the household. There is the nature of the relationship. You know, it basically it's a paper decision. It's not a decision that's.
So basically, what you're saying is we have a situation at the moment where there's lots of areas for discretion. There's lots of proofs and bits of paper that you have to find and stitch together. It makes the process complex, whereas if we just had marriage, it would be relatively simple.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think that's a misconception.
Okay.
What happens is to apply for what used to be called the old independency visa, now the partner visa, you have to prove that you're in a general relationship. The difference used to be that if you were married, you were not required to have lived together for a period of 12 months. Now that has changed up to a point. If you happen to live in a state which provides registration or civil unions, then you can use that to waive the 12 months discretion or the 12 months living together requirement. But significantly, I think in 2009 there were a number of other changes, and the changes were the recognition of a family. And now we have, for example, partners being able to apply not just for the interdependency visa, but for any type of visa, provided that there is provision for secondary applicants. For example, the wife of a man cannot apply for a tourist visa on the basis that she's his wife, but she can apply for a visa on the basis that she's his wife if he's coming, say, on a business visa or something like that. So it's been expanded now tremendously.
So it's a lot better than it used to be, but we've got a ways to go.
Well, I think we're almost there when it comes to migration. I think the issues come on other levels, marriage, civil unions, and you know there's constitutional grounds there that one has to address.
Now, supposing we go down this route that we've been touching on, and I want to talk about this a bit more in the next segment, because we're going to talk to Rodney Crew down in Tasmania. We do have a whole series of state-based relationship recognition systems here. That patchwork will probably continue. It might change a bit. We might get different recognition systems in different states and all that. How does that affect the situation? Supposing we've got an Australian citizen and they have a registered Victorian relationship with their same-sex partner who is, say, from Thailand. Does that help with their migration?
Well, are you talking about a registered relationship that took place in Thailand or in
here?
In here, okay. Well, first of all, it's not easy to have a relationship registered, you know, with birth dates and marriages if one of the partners is not Australian. There was a time when they used to insist that both partners had to be Australian citizens or permanent residents. I've been having an endless battle with them, and I must say that they have approved all applications that I have put in after a bit of a fight. Now that they've changed their tack, what they're really saying is that the legislation provides that the party has to be domiciled in Australia or ordinarily resident. They're interpreting that as living in Melbourne, in Victoria, for a period of 12 months.
Okay, well, supposing they're doing what I used to do when I was on a tourist visa and trying to get recognised as an independent partner and fly back to the UK every 3 months for a week or two and then come back again. But I had a flat and I had a partner here and so on and so forth. Would that be enough to domicile me here?
Well, it's very difficult to work out what birth dates and marriages will decide. They're not terribly logical about this, but there is one other provision in the Migration Act, and that is the provision to have this 12-month requirement waived, where a person is either not married or not registered. And I think a number of people do not realise that if you have a properly prepared application, you can have that requirement waived. You may, for example, have two people who are terribly closeted about their sexuality, and they don't want few people know about the relationship.
Yeah, well, that's an issue we'll come to later on in the show as well, because I want to talk a little bit about aged care, for example. what Tony mentioned to me a little while ago off air about end-of-life issues, where there are partners who actually don't want to admit that they're partners, and yet, you know, they could end up being split up if they don't. It's a very difficult situation. Okay, well, as I say, in a moment we're going to talk to Rodney Croom down in Tasmania about their relationship recognition system. Also want to talk to Sue Buttrick, who's here with her partner. They got civilly unioned, or civilised as I think she puts it, in the UK a while ago. In the meantime, this is Doug Pollard with Christina Antoniades bringing you the Rainbow Report Family Forum on marriage and relationships, sponsored by Nichols Family Lawyers. To ask a question, challenge a statement, or just pitch your 2 cents worth into the discussion, SMS is on 0427 569 949, email onair@joy.org.au, or call 1300 569 949 at any time, or use your iPhone app. Coming up in a moment, we're going to have the news, and then we'll talk to Ruby. You know what to do. SMS is 0427 569 949. Email onair@joy.org.au, or call 1300 569 949. And I've actually got a question that came in here. I don't know what it's to do with today, but it's for Clayton Newton-Brown. He says, great to see there's a conservative movement within the Liberal Party, as heard on Triple J last week. Who are the Montalvo group, and what are their objectives? Do you know?
No.
Behind you. Oh, he hasn't got a mic. Who's got a mic for him? Okay, sorry, we ran out of time there. I'll come back and answer that afterwards. Yes, now it's time for the news.
Saturday Magazine, every week from 10 until noon on Joy 94.9.
Okay, you're listening to the Rainbow Report Family Forum on marriage and relationships. You know what to do. To ask a question, challenge a statement, or just pitch 2 cents worth in. SMS 0427 Joy 949, email onair@joy.org.au, or call 1300 Joy 949 anytime, or use the iPhone app. Now, just before we went to the news, we had a question in for Clayton Newton-Brown. I'd like to bring him back in on question to Clayton Newton-Brown. Great to see there's a conservative movement within the Liberal Party, as heard on Triple J back. Who are the Montalvo group, and what are their objectives? They're very vague as to who they are. How do they feel about marriage, Christian?
Thanks, Doug. The Montalvo branch is, I'm proud to say, the fastest growing branch of the Liberal Party, and is a GLBT friendly branch within my electorate. So I think it's fantastic that members of the community are joining up to assist me in the process of developing policy from within, and that's often the best way to achieve. That's often the best way to actually get the results on the board. I was elected in 2010 as a member of Paran, and I'm not gay, but my community is the GLBT community is very prominent within Paran. I just want to talk a little bit about the perceptions.
Well, not too much, because I've got Rodney Croom waiting on the line.
Well, maybe I'll come back to it the issue that later on about the way that the Labor Party seems to have positioned itself as a friend of the GLBT community, and the great work that the Liberal Party's done over many decades has been put to the rear.
All right, Clayton, you'll get your chance to do your sprue for the party in a little while. Now, we were talking before we went to the break about overseas problems, migration problems, state-based recognition systems. Probably one of the best state-based recognition systems we have is the one we have in Tasmania, and of course I know my next guest is going to agree with that, because it's Rodney Croom. Good morning, Rodney.
Good morning, Doug. Good morning, everyone else.
Now, tell us a bit about this Tasmanian system, because I'm hearing a lot about the Tasmanian system at the moment, particularly in relation to things like aged care. People are saying, well, that's a very good model when it comes to people who don't necessarily want to be seen as married or whatever. Why would it be a good model for something like that?
Well, the first thing to remember, I think, is that we sat down and talked about recognising relationships in Tasmania Tasmania before there was any discussion of marriage equality at a federal level. And so we weren't looking to make a step towards marriage or a step away from it or anything like that. We were simply asking ourselves the question, what is the best way to recognise intimate personal relationships, be they opposite sex, same sex, or no-sex? That is relationships between companions, elderly companions, and that's probably, I think, what you're getting at.
Carer-type relationships and companion relationships, yeah.
And what we came up with was a system where basically the state doesn't decide what is this intimate relationship. It's the individuals involved. So if you and someone else believe you're in a significant personal relationship that matters to you, which should have the same rights as a married couple in state law, then you nominate yourselves and are recognised formally with, of course, the registration of a deed of relationship, a certificate, and if you wish, a ceremony. So our scheme was never designed to be a substitute for marriage. It was designed instead to be an opportunity for those who don't want to get married or those who can't get married. The great tragedy, I think, of the Tasmanian scheme is that it's been seen by those who don't want to offer equal marriage as a substitute. And it's not a substitute, and it was never intended to be. It was meant to sit alongside marriage, like I said, for those who can't or don't want to marry. And to that extent, I think it's been quite successful. I've noticed in the last couple of years a big increase in the number of heterosexual couples who are registering a deed of relationship.
Yeah, this is something I wanted to talk about, because these relationship recognitions, these registered partnerships, are they called, are open to heterosexual couples as well as to same-sex couples. Now, that's not the case with the British civil partnership system, as I understand it. Now, Sue, you have, it's a civil partnership, isn't it? The UK civil partnership.
Yeah.
Are heterosexuals allowed to have a civil partnership?
As far as I remember, I think they do, because the old word for it was common law husband or common law wife. And that went for a long time. And I believe, unless it's changed in the last 2 years since I've been here, I believe that heterosexual couples can have a civil partnership.
It was my understanding they couldn't, actually.
Perhaps the law's changed.
No, you have this civil partnership. You couldn't get married at the time because it wasn't on offer. They are looking at giving marriage in the UK at the moment. Were you satisfied with the civil partnership, or did you just see it as a way station on the way to marriage?
I think the UK's approach is two phases, to be honest with you. You've got to remember that before 2004, we had no equal rights at all. So we're talking about hospital visiting rights, we're talking about parental, inheritance tax, tenancy, all those basic civil human rights that we should have.
So we didn't have the de facto kind of rights that we have here in Australia?
There was nothing at all before 2004, which is really not that long ago.
No.
So that brought us up to a level with our straight friends, at least in terms of basic human rights. We had a civil partnership in 2010. Before we came here, we had our union, our ceremony, and so yes, it made a difference to us. We have a certificate that proves that we are a registered partnership. However, of course, that is not recognised in Victoria. So when we relocated here, we're back being called de facto.
Okay. Rodney, that's a bit of a problem with the various state-based systems here, isn't it? Is the Tasmanian scheme recognised by any of the other states when you move into state?
Yes, some and not others. It is a big problem. I mean, we're first in the Labor Party how it supports nationally consistent state-based relationship registry, but they're anything but consistent. They're wildly diverse. The one in Queensland, for instance, is probably more like marriage than any of the others. And the ones in New South Wales doesn't recognise the same-sex, the non-conjugal relationships I mentioned before. Neither does the ACT one. And in terms of overseas recognition, yes. Overseas same-sex marriages and civil unions are recognised as civil unions in Tasmania and Queensland.
So you'll have to move to Tasmania.
Yes, but not in Victoria And I understand that all of our state-based schemes are recognised as civil partnerships in Britain and also as civil unions in New Zealand. But of course, it's just a hodgepodge.
It's a mess. It's a mess, and I think that would be it's well past time we cleaned it up. Rodney, thank you for joining us this morning. And by the way, thank you for your little key hit at the end of the hearing the other day into marriage equality by the House of Representatives. I think we should add at this point, put a little stroke in there. We have had the Senate inquiry, and that's now closed, but the House inquiry is still going on. To make a submission to that is a heck of a lot easier. It's just a multiple choice question, and that's all you have to do. Go to the website. Christina.
This is Christina Antonellis with Doug Pollard, bringing you the Rainbow Report Family Forum on Marriage and Relationships. To ask a question, challenge a statement, or just pitch your 2 cents worth into the discussion, SMS 0427 569 949, email onair@joy.org.au, or call 1300 569 949 at any time. Or if you have an iPhone, simply go to the App Store.